This is the quietest I've ever heard this group.
We are live. We are live.
Okay, we still have 2 minutes. Good evening and welcome to the Township of North Dumfries regular council meeting this Monday, June 22nd. Due to COVID-19 and recommendations by Waterloo Regional Public Health to exercise social distancing and public gathering thresholds, Township Council meetings are currently being held electronically. Members of the public may watch and or participate in this open meeting electronically using any of the following methods. Watch the live stream by accessing the meeting at calendar.northdumfries.ca/council. Under the video column, click on the link for the meeting date that you wish to watch. You do not need a YouTube account to watch live stream. You cannot directly participate in the meeting via the live stream, as this is for viewing only. Number 2, members of the public interested in attending as an observer or wish to speak to any item listed under item 7, items for discussion, must submit the request in writing to the Clerk's Division at clerk@northdumfries.ca before 7 p.m. on June 21st. A link and or telephone number will be provided to those who register before the registration deadline. Number 3, in accordance with the Township's procedural bylaw, members of the public are not able to verbally speak to all items of the regular council agenda. Members of the public may only verbally speak on the items listed under item 7 exclusively, but may submit their comments in writing for all other items. If you'd like to comment on a particular item, members of the public are invited to submit written comments at clerk@northdumfries.ca, which will be provided to the mayor and council prior to the meeting and will form part of the public record. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and can I have approval of the agenda, please?
Certainly. So moved by Councillor Rolleman and seconded by Councillor Gillespie that council adopt the June 22nd, 2020 regular council agenda as presented with the following addendums and amendments. Add item 7.13, report number FIN-14-2020, Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, Community Culture and Recreation Funding Stream Grant Application. 2, add item 7.14, report number REC-10-2020, Victoria Parks Building Project Status. 3, add item 7.15, report number BLD-03-2020, encroachment agreement, accommodation of an existing deck structure at 84-86 Stanley Street. 5, add item 7.16, report number CAO-15-2020, discussion report, expanded and enhanced patio programs for 2020 COVID-19 pandemic economic recovery program phase 3. 5, amend the resolution submitted for item 7.2, and 6, add item 12.5, bylaw number 3171-20, being a bylaw to establish a business license to permit a patio or pop-up patio for a restaurant, bar, or similar commercial establishment. So Mayor Foxton, how would you like to vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rolleman?
Yes.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof?
I am
Councillor Austin?
Yes. On item 7.2, in regards to the correspondence received by Mirko Petrosevic, I declare conflict of interest to that.
Thank you, and clerk is so noted. Presentations, none. We have a delegation for Jordan Darby. So Jordan, clerk, will you arrange for Jordan to be on the line?
Hello, you
Hello,
there now?
Jordan. Go
Hey,
ahead,
how are
Jordan.
you? Good, thank
Fine,
you.
thanks.
Thanks for taking the time to see me today and what have you. As I mentioned in the letter that we sent off to you guys, we're looking for a special permit to run our food truck for the rest of the remainder of this year. Started the business last year, and then this year, due to COVID-19, we lost all of our events, all of our shows, due to public gathering numbers and whatnot. I've spoken with a lot of residents of Ayr. Everybody seems keen on the idea and would like to have more options for Ayr. You know, we had kids menus and family deals and stuff like that. I've spoken with a few private property owners about parking on their property, which would be nice if it works out, if we get permission and a permit to do so. And I think it's good for Ayr. More food options to offer Ayr, able to keep our business going at least for this year. And then hopefully next year we can go back to our original business plan, which was fairs and festivals and larger events is which we'd like to do. Our hours would be flexible upon discussion. Right now, ideally just weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, see how it all goes, as I do have another job that I have to tend to. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at right now. So just wondering if we can apply for a permit or get a permit or how that all works.
Questions or comments, councilors? I see no questions. Thank you, Jordan. Can you read the motion, please, clerk?
Sure. So it's moved by Councillor Osner and seconded by Councillor McCreary that the delegation from Jordan Darby with the Tragically Chip wagon requesting council permission to operate a food truck be received, and the Township Council provide for an exemption from bylaw number 1758-98 to accommodate the operations of no more than one stationary refreshment and food vehicle to be located at Team Vincent Motorsports, 1148 Northumberland Street, Ayr, subject to the following provisions. 1, the operating period shall be limited to June 23rd to October 31st, 2020, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. 2, satisfactory inspection and approval secured from Region Public Health Department. 3, satisfactory inspection and approval secured from the Fire Department. And 4, ensure appropriate public gathering and physical distancing requirements as set out by the province are met and adhered to. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rolleman?
Yes.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you, Jordan. Congratulations. So Jordan is now leaving the meeting.
If I may, can I ask for one question?
Sure.
Originally, my business partner and I, we had planned on Team Vincent Motorsports. Dave did give us permission, but due to location, we were kind of hoping if the curling club will agree to it, to move into Ayr at the curling club parking lot. They still have to have a meeting with their board and discuss that as well.
CEO McNeely, how do we handle this? Do we add a friendly amendment to say once location is firm?
Well, council can amend the resolution you just adopted and put the 2 addresses and, just build into it, subject to the property owner consenting in addition to those other conditions that we put in place. That way the, that way the Ayr Curling Club has the proper time to consider Mr. Darby's request. And obviously if they don't consent, then that property would no longer be eligible as per the council resolution.
Okay, I'm just going to put in here on the motion. I'll just read that paragraph. which was, and that the Township of North Dumfries provide for an exemption from bylaw number 1758-98 to accommodate the operation of no more than one stationary refreshment and food vehicle to be located at Team Vincent Motors, 1148 Northumberland Street, or Air Curling Club, subject to the following provisions. Based on the amendment, can I have a vote on the amendment, please, Ms. Clerk?
Certainly. So Mayor Foxton,
Yes.
Councillor Rollman,
Yes.
Councillor Osner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
and Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you. Now, Jordan, should neither one of these locations work out, you'll have to come back to council for approval of where you do finally get one. Or can we direct staff to approve it without it coming to us if it's in a deemable, decent location? CO McNeely?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I mean, council can delegate that to staff. It has been our preference, because this is an outright prohibition currently under the mobile food vendors bylaw, that council on a site-specific basis assess the appropriateness of candidate sites that are introduced by prospective operators. My preference would be that it still be by council, just because it is an outright prohibition.
All right, then we'll leave it as by council. And it is passed. Jordan, thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the time.
You're welcome. Please advise when he's off. Are we good to proceed?
Yeah, you
Next.
you can proceed.
Thank you. Next, we have the consent agenda. And it's Committee of the Whole and adoption of 6.1.1. So, Clerk, do you want to read those and just state as presented instead of reading that whole thing?
So moved by Councillor McCreary and seconded by Councillor Osner. The council adopt the following recommendations as listed in 6.1A through F on the agenda as presented by Committee of the Whole dated June 8th, 2020. And that's as presented in the agenda. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman,
Yes.
Councillor Osner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
and Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
That motion is carried.
Thank you. Next, we are motion to approve 6.2.1 and 6.2.2.
So that's moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Rollman that council approve the following minutes. Council meeting minutes dated May 25th, 2020, and Committee of the Whole meeting minutes dated June 8th, 2020. So Mayor Foxton, how do you
Yes.
vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman,
Yes.
Councillor Osner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
and Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you. And next we have 7.1, correspondence received from the Association of Municipalities of Ontario regarding AMO conference delegation meetings. So clerk, please.
Certainly, yeah. So the motion is moved by Councillor Rollman and seconded by Councillor Gillespie that the correspondence received from the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, AMO, regarding AMO conference delegation meetings be received. So Mayor Foxton,
Yes.
Councillor Rollman,
Yes.
Councillor Osner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
and Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you. Next, we will move on to 7.2. Councillor Osner has declared that he has a conflict on 7.2. I'm going to ask the clerk to only read the final paragraph that says, therefore be it resolved that. To start there, please, clerk.
Certainly. So moved by Councillor Osner's left, yes. So moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Roloman. So as presented in the correspondence that I sent out this afternoon, in the last paragraph is therefore be it resolved that the Township of North Dumfries Council recognizes that a healthy professional news media is essential to the proper functioning of democracy in the township, urges other municipal councils within the region and across Canada to recognize that a robust news media is essential to the proper functioning of democracy in their jurisdictions, endorses legislation and regulations to support and rejuvenate news outlets across Canada, and urges the federal government to move quickly to pass legislation to ensure an ecosystem for a friendly news media to serve all Canadians, and that the resolution be forwarded to the area municipalities, local MPs and MPPs, and the Federation of Canadian Municipalities and Association of Municipalities of Ontario.
Thank you.
So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Roloman?
Yes.
Councillor Osner? Or,
No.
sorry, Councillor Osner. Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you. I wasn't saying no for Councillor Oster. I was saying no, the Councillor.
Yeah,
Oster won't be
sorry.
voting. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify for people listening in.
So if you just
Thank
wait
you.
a moment, we're just going to let Councillor Osner back into the meeting.
Yes. Welcome back, Councillor Oster. In the next one, which is 7.3, I just want to touch on it based just high level, and then let maybe Ms. Settle say a few comments. What this is we are endorsing anyone that has land around a 401 entrance. If it's an aggregate pit, they do not pay as much as what a commercial or business around that area would be. And when they sell that land, they usually sell it at the business price, and they purchase it at a much lesser price than the business price. This is trying to even the playing field. And so, Ms. Settle, would you like any comments?
Just a little bit of background, further background on this. So a few years ago, each of the municipalities that had aggregates in their municipality, they did a request for, they went to the ARB. And so there was a negotiation between municipalities, MPAC, and Minister of Finance as to how they would actually value the aggregate properties for property taxation. And it was a low value at the time. There were some other things that were in the works, but the representatives of TAPMO have listened to some of the inequities that have happened. And so they're making a recommendation that the government go back and take a look at the valuation, see if there's a better way that they can do that. So the request has come to each of the municipalities that are sitting on TAPMO that they support this resolution so that it can at least be looked at again, and we can see if we can come up with if the government would consider coming up with a better, more equitable valuation. As the mayor was indicating, in some different locations, the value of the property is actually a lot higher than what they're being assessed for, and so that's what they're finding is the inequity. So that's why it's coming to council at this time. Now, one of the things, this is a phased approach, so it's coming at this point because the MPAC is actually doing evaluation of all of the properties across Ontario. And this is one of the many items. So it's not that this is being raised so that it's the only item, but because the evaluation is taking place across Ontario, this particular item has been flagged by TAPMO and its representatives.
And if I can ask, and you'll correct me, Ms. Stedall, if I'm incorrect, we have that aggregate pit at the 401, right at the entrance and the off-ramp. They are paying minimum dollars in tax revenue. Now they're going to sell that land to commercial business at top dollar. And so they're going to gain huge profits from what we have been basically, they haven't been paying themselves. So we're one of the prime examples. Is that correct, Ms. Stedall? Have I got that right?
So when the County of Wellington, they engaged some tax consultants to take a look at different properties, and they did identify a couple of them in North Dumfries as examples. They've also taken a look in Brant County and in Pushlands as well. But this one in particular property, it is in a location that is close to the 401, and it seems that it is low, but it is correct valuation under the current valuation method. So that was the problem. They used it as a highlighted example that we should, the government should take a look at what the valuation is, because the property taxes are quite low on it.
Correct. So we have a prime example right in our location. And clerk, again, if you could just read starting at now, therefore be it resolved. Oh, Ms. Gillespie, Councillor Gillespie, and then Councillor Rollerman.
Okay, I just wondered if, talking about MPAC, has anything happened with farmland? Like we were talking to Ms. Carriolis about the farmland inequities, and I just wondered if anything has come of that discussion at all.
Through you, Councillor. So I haven't heard of anything in particular specifically as to what they're planning on doing with farmland. I know that that's another issue because MPAC is doing a full valuation. That is another item I believe that's highlighted that they're going to be taking a look at. And there is a piece of correspondence a little farther down talking about the tax rate for farmland. So I think that's going to, gain momentum at the province when they're looking at all of the valuation this year.
Maybe we can look into that a little further, Ms. Stedall, and also maybe have a report down the road and see if we do want to write a letter to the government requesting they look into it. But we'll have that discussion down the road. Councillor Rollerman.
Yes, Mayor Fox, my question is for you. So with TAPMO, are they looking at having different tiers? Like some of our gravel pits are on farms, so they would have a different classification for farmland. And then some are obviously in industrial parks, so they'd be presumably classified the same as other industrial properties, or are they just saying one blanket classification for all gravel pits? Like what's the thinking here?
Right now, it's one blanket for all. And we're saying that doesn't justify the areas that some of them are in. Years ago, when this first came up, the chair of TAPMO at that time said the 401 should be treated differently. Lands along the 401 should be treated differently because they are in a higher bracket. So this is just those areas that we're talking about.
So then the farm ones would stay the same?
That stay. I'm hoping they relook at the whole thing and try and do a fair adjustment. But we're especially targeting this one, Ms. Stedall, and then Ms. McCurry.
So what they do with the individual properties, in this one in particular, but for different ones throughout the township, is they actually take a look at what is going on the property. So there may, in one particular property, you could have it classed as industrial, as residential, or as commercial, depending on what type of operations are going on. So whether or not it's actually being mined, if it's something that is being used for farmland and then going to be used for aggregates in the future, then it's farmland. But if it is returned back to farmland, it'll become that as well. So it's a matter of having to make sure that as each stage of the development of these properties happens, is it gets reported back to MPAC so that they can change the assessment.
Ms. McCreary, Councillor McCreary.
The TAPMO minutes mentioned that Sussex Group did this study. They were hired by Wellington County.
Correct.
That study available for us to see? Is it on Wellington County's, perhaps on their webpage, or is it available to the public?
We have been cautiously protecting a lot of the data and information because we feel that the aggregate industry may come hard after us. So it's not available as of yet. When we make the big push, then it will be made available. Ms. Stedall.
They actually engaged the consultants so that they could represent them at the assessment review board. So that's why the findings are not public at this point. They're still using them for their hearing.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. McNeely.
So Madam Mayor, if I could, just to follow up what Ms. Settle said in response to Councillor Rollerman, the big differential between the 401 corridor and those lands in the 97 401 business park versus the majority of our aggregate sites across the rural countryside is the official plan designation. So for most of our gravel pits, the end use, once the gravel extraction has been exhausted, is to return the lands back to an agricultural status, which is consistent with the official plan policies. For some of those properties at the 97-401 Business Park, and specifically the property that Madam Mayor has flagged, it is actually designated as its future use as industrial. And so the properties around it, although themselves may not be developed, they may be sitting as idle land, they're assessed based upon what permissions or forward value is available based on that long-term objective of the official plan. If I take a look at the property in question, they've treated it as old agriculture, just as they would any other property, even though the long-term return for that property is for employment-based purposes. And so that's where you get that significant variance in land value. And this analysis or bringing this forward may show some isolated inequities between a rural countryside versus a higher order property if I take a look at its longer term use.
So if I may, we're not going to the Minister of Natural Resources and Forests, we're going to the Minister of Finance. And a few of them already went to the Minister of Finance and said, well, we don't want to do this for 1 or 2 municipalities. So get us some more municipalities and names and we will consider dealing with this. And so I, as Chair of TAPMO, I've sent it out to all the TAPMO members, asking them to endorse this. Are there any other questions? Seeing not, Ms. Sage, could you read starting at now therefore be it resolved?
Certainly, yeah. So moved by Councillor Ossner and seconded by Councillor McCreary. So the first portion is as received in the submission in the agenda that was circulated. And now therefore be it resolved, A, that the Council of the Township of North Dumfries does not consider the revised criteria for assessment of aggregate resource properties as a fair method of evaluation for these properties, and B, the Council of the Township of North Dumfries believes that there is a need to review the current assessment scheme for aggregate resource properties to address the inequality of property values. C, the Council of the Township of North Dumfries hereby calls upon the province to work with the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation to address the assessment issues so that aggregate resource properties are assessed for their industrial value, and D, the Council of the Township of North Dumfries directs the Chief Administrative Officer to provide a copy of this motion to the Ministry of Finance, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Minister of Natural Resources and Forestry, and the local MPPs. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rolleman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you. The next one is the correspondence in regards to Walter Street, and there was already a new stop sign. Well, it wasn't a new stop sign. It was a stop sign that kept getting taken down. And one of the emails that came along about this said that the big trucks are the ones that are wiping out the stop sign, which is an interesting, I have no verification of that. They're asking for a sign saying something about the children play safe. But I wanted to talk about this whole intersection because we have several emails about this. We know signs don't always work. People eventually just ignore them, especially people that, I can't say that. I was going to say people that don't live in our community, but that's not true. Some people that are in a hurry to get home also don't. What are our choices to do here, folks? What are some ideas and thoughts? Councillor Rolleman.
I know I've talked with residents and some people would like to see a 3-way stop there at Walter and Piper. Part of the problem is trucks and traffic coming over the Piper Street Bridge, and then they're speeding up to leave the village, and they're gaining speed just past the the Air News Greenwood Park, and as they turn that curve, they're going pretty fast out of town. So a lot of residents have asked me if we would do a 3-way stop. I don't know if that would work. The reason why the stop sign is getting knocked down is because trucks are going over the bridge and then turning up Church Street and getting to Victoria Park and realizing they're in trouble. So then they turn right on Walter, and then they try to turn right on Piper, and they take the stop sign out. That's happened 2 or 3 times. But putting up signs saying no trucks on Church Street means that you're encouraging trucks to use Piper Street, but Piper Street is supposed to be no trucks as well. So I don't know what the answer is, but there's a couple different issues. One is trucks and one is speeding on Piper Street, as on lots of our streets, all over town, Greenfield Road West and Hall Street and Scott Street and Swan Street. It's everywhere. Some residents have asked me if we would consider doing lowering the speed limit to 30 kilometers an hour throughout the entire village. Maybe we need to do something drastic and say 30 kilometers an hour on every single street and air during the construction. I don't know, something to throw it out there to people, let them know that we're sick and tired of this and we want to do something drastic.
Councillor Ossner.
What about if we were to, in some of the hot spots of town while the construction's going on, because I still maintain this is all because of construction. Everybody's shooting around all different ends of town, whether they're from in town or out of town. And of course, the minute that happens, we're going to get flooded with emails about speeding around town. So it's going to happen. What about select intersections, like Councilor Roman said there at that spot, during the construction, put a temporary three-way stop there to get the traffic. I mean, my only concern with the trucks is they're going to make a lot of noise slowing down. They're going to make a lot of noise speeding up. But I mean, what's the lesser of two evils? So if we could maybe do that temporarily and see how that works. I'm afraid that if we try and drop the speed limit around town, I think it's just people are going to get more frustrated. The more we try and stop people, the more frustrated they're going to get, and the more violations.
I have to agree with you. What do you think about? I just went down Manley Street today, and there's that speed hump, that temporary speed hump. It's an awful speed hump. It's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, even going like 5 kilometers an hour, it's a big deal. I see you guys laughing. But if we had the trucks are going to make, you know what, somebody brought a really point. The trucks are going to go that way because they're stuck downtown. And do we have to put a no truck sign, a bigger one, at a better location before they get trapped there? And if so, where do we put it? Because if we put it at the base of Swan Street, that's a regional road. We'd have to get permission. Doesn't mean we can't do that, but we'd have to get permission. If we did it anywhere else, the truck's already trapped.
Has to be a Drumble
CO
Road.
McNeely.
So, Madam Mayor, at the township's request, the region did put signage for the no truck route as a friendly reminder on Swan Street, about 10 to 15 meters south of the Stanley Swan intersection. And it actually directs the trucks to turn to the right toward the Air Public Library rather than to the left toward Church Piper. So the region has put that in place. A larger no truck sign was put in place near the intersection of Northumberland and Stanley, so that if trucks did migrate that far, there's another reminder. The reality is, I'm afraid to say, the GPS on some of these trucks is directing people, and the signage means nothing to them. And of course, the sophistication of the GPS systems that they're using don't necessarily differentiate between the no truck route versus just a traveled road. And so once they get a certain distance, they're just continuing west as they're trying to migrate toward Trussler Road to get up to Cedar Creek.
Okay, so looks like maybe our best option is the three-way stop. Councillor Ossner.
Can we not have the sign at the Drumble Road saying no truck entrance at all and detour them down the Drumble Road? Is that sign? Because I know there is a sign there, but it might be too late where the sign is because the sign is on our side of Drumble Road. Can we not ask the County of Brant if we can put 1 or 2 signs further up, closer to Paris, so that they can prepare themselves to turn onto Drumble Road?
CO McNeely?
So the signage that the Councillor Ossner has just identified was in the original detouring package. We found out about a month ago that the signage actually hadn't been properly installed. So at the township's request, it was addressed. But I think what Councillor Ossner is saying, in addition to the sign that's actually there at the intersection of Drumbo Air Road, to have some pre-warning as trucks are approaching that intersection. So I can speak to the region. It's their project. They're responsible for the detour signage. And then they, of course, have to have cooperation from the County of Brant because that portion of road is actually within the corporate limits of the County of Brant. Certainly, I can make that request of them. And basically, we're giving perhaps a quarter mile and then a half mile approach to the intersection, that pre-warning.
Councillor Ossner.
So, I mean, if we don't wait for the region to do this, I don't know how quick they're going to act on something like this. Can we not like make a phone call to the County of Brant tomorrow and say, can we put signs up? Like get the authorization from them if we can put signs up. And if the region's going to be pokey about it and not get to it or don't want to do it, then we do it.
So council would have to authorize the expenditure for the signs. It's about $500 a piece. And if council authorizes that expenditure, we'll make the signs up if the County of Brant allows us to install it. But this is a regional road project. And, you know, it's their responsibility to properly designate and sign a detour route around their project.
Do you know what some of the issue is, Councillor Austin, if I may for a second, then I'll recognize you again. We're dealing with, assuming all the trucks are coming from the Air Road and really Air Paris Road, it's Scott Street as well. How do we deal with the ones coming from Scott Street?
I would suggest, Madam Mayor, the majority of the traffic is coming up from the 403 corridor. I'm not going to say exclusively, but the majority of our truck traffic is coming northerly up the Air Road into the downtown.
Councillor Austin.
Through you to CEO McNeely. Your comment about it's the region's responsibility, I understand, but I mean, since the region has started construction work for the last 3 years, it has been nothing but arguments on getting them to put proper signage up and putting it in the proper areas and adequate signage. So I'm not really confident that the region's going to get right on top of it right away to get the signs further down the Air Paris Road so that the trucks don't all of a sudden go. Because where they put the one sign, once the trucks get there, where are they going to go? It's too late. They've already passed Drumbo Road. They're coming downtown. And then,
so if I may, can I direct CEO
west.
McNeely to talk to the region and within the next day and see how quickly they can respond? And if they have not responded by Thursday of this week with a commitment to put up a sign by next Monday, the latest, that we approach Brant ourselves. Thoughts? Does that seem okay? All right. The other thing, but it doesn't resolve all the issues. It's not just trucks. Do we still go with the three-way stop? It seems to have been successful on Hall. It worked at the bridge, the two-way stop at the bridge, the Jedburgh Bridge. Thoughts about a three-way stop, ladies and gentlemen? Councillor Rowland and Councillor Ossner.
I think we should try it during the construction and same as Hall Street and monitor and have staff report back to us in October to see how it went.
Councillor Ossner.
Is there any way for us to put a temporary three-way stop there and put a speed hump right at the stop sign so that when they accelerate, either way they're going, they have to go slow?
CEO McNeely,
Just- I don't
can we
want
put a
people to run-
temporary speed hump?
Sorry.
Councillor Ossner, finish.
What I'm worried about is people just continuing right through the stop sign. If we're not going to have it enforced, which it's tough to enforce every intersection with people blowing through stop signs, I think that it would be prudent to have a speed hump at either, you know, the west side or the east side of the stop sign, like right at the intersection, almost like the, what do they call those that
Like the raised
Yeah.
intersection.
Yeah,
CO McNeely?
So, I'm assuming, Madam Mayor, when you're talking about the raised speed hump at an intersection, are you speaking equivalent to what was put on Manley and McDonald Street in the downtown?
that's a little too big.
That's huge.
No, but I mean, I need to understand what council's looking for.
Is there
Yeah.
something like that, but not quite as high?
Okay, that's what they are, because they're meant to be temporary in nature, and they're a molded composite. Those units are about $3,000 to $3,500 a piece.
For what period of time?
You buy them.
How you buy them? It's not a bad idea. We have it, then if we can try it in other areas of the township, including some areas in Branston, Clyde, and
I wouldn't
3 or 4?
recommend something that severe as a speed hump.
do you have any other recommendations?
We haven't had people blowing through the stop sign at Hall Street.
It's true. Do you want to give it a try and
As-
then we'll discuss the hump down the road, Councillor Austin?
So that statistic is backed up by what? Because I don't know of anybody who's been monitoring by law or the police, or have we had anybody monitoring that three-way stop?
Yes,
Councillor
staff,
Rowland,
I know a person who lives right there, and that person gives me daily updates, and everyone seems to be stopping. They haven't reported anybody blowing through it, so it's a pretty reliable source.
Okay.
so if I may also, Madam Mayor, staff are to report back to council in October on the merits of that stop sign. And yes, it is being monitored. I would suggest to you, it's really no different than any other stop sign in North Dumfries. Vehicles are perhaps not coming to the complete stop, but they are significantly slowing down and maybe creeping through the intersection. But that's certainly better than what was being traveled before the stop signs were put in place. We have an issue with people stopping at stop signs. They roll through them.
but not just us, everywhere. I forget, I was in Kitchener somewhere and somebody didn't stop there. So I mean, it's everywhere. So but they do slow down. Most people slow down. Any other comments? So are we decided on a three-way stop there? And the sign on the Air Paris Road before the Drumbo Road? CO McNeely.
So, Madam Mayor, if it's council's wish to install a temporary three-way stop sign at the intersection of Walter and Piper, we'll need to add to today's agenda a bylaw authorizing an amendment to the traffic and parking bylaw to install on a temporary basis, and perhaps October 31st would be the closeout window, on a temporary basis through to October 31st, 2020, a three-way stop sign control at the intersection of Walter and Piper Street.
Do you have that, Ms. Sage?
I believe so. Just give me a minute to get that written, but
So that would be the resolution, and then there would actually have to be a bylaw to amend the highway traffic, sorry, the parking and traffic bylaw as
Correct.
part of the bylaw section of tonight's agenda.
But can we move ahead with it if we vote on that tonight and then the bylaw come back later
No,
for approval?
because I cannot install a stop sign and have it enforced under the Highway Traffic Act in the absence of not having a bylaw. So similar to Hall Street, if council passes it tonight, we will order the signs. We'll put the temporary ones up until the locates are done at that intersection. And then the permanent signs are put up for the 3-month period. But it allows the police, the moment that's installed, to temporarily or permanent post to enforce it under the Highway Traffic Act.
Thank you. Ms. Sage, are you okay with that?
yeah, I believe I am. Section of Walter. So yeah, I can read what I've got drafted, and then if there's any changes, I can make those changes.
Go ahead. And I assume Councillor Rowland and Councillor Austin will be the mover and seconder?
Yeah, sorry, who are the mover and the seconder? I can make that change.
Counselor Roman and Counselor Ossner.
Okay. Okay, so that's moved by Councillor Rowland, seconded by Councillor Ossner, that the correspondence received from Lindsay Pickering regarding road safety on Piper Street be received. And that council authorized staff to introduce a bylaw to amend the traffic and parking bylaw to install a temporary stop sign through to October 2020 to introduce a 3-way stop sign at the intersection of Walter Street and Piper Street. And that council introduced bylaw 3172-20 as item 12.6 to the June 22nd, 2020 council agenda to amend the traffic and parking bylaw. If there's any changes or any amendments to that?
Sounds good.
Okay,
CEO
so
McNeely?
Mayor Foxton?
CEO McNeely, are you good?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Fine, thank
I'm
you.
voting yes.
Okay, Councillor Rowland, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you. And I will sign that at a later date. Next is the correspondence from Mark Walther, but we've already dealt with this. Is that, so we're in agreement. So we're just going to receive her report. So if you'd read the motion, please.
Certainly. So that is moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Rowland that the correspondence received from Mark Walther requesting a no truck sign be installed at Church Street and Piper Street be received. So that's Mayor Foxton. How do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rowland?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
All right, that motion is carried.
Thank you. Okay, and the next one is the correspondence from Stephen Tiffin in regards to Northumberland Street. Are there any comments or questions? CEO McNeely.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Council dealt with a very similar request at your meeting of June the 8th. Council at that time adopted a resolution asking the region to undertake both a speed study for Northumberland through Ayr, as well as an operational review at the intersections. And so that request coming out of the June 8th meeting has already been forwarded to the region's transportation section. The region has acknowledged receipt of that request and has assigned an individual to review the merits of the township's resolution. If I could suggest, perhaps with Mr. Tiffin, we identified that this was brought forward by a previous resident on the 8th of June and what actions council undertook at that meeting.
That's exactly what I was going to suggest. So asking the clerk to please forward the resolution to Mr. Tiffin and explain, as CEO McNeely said.
Sure. Yes, also Mayor Foxton, just to go back to item 7.5, but I just wanted to bring to council's attention, we did receive 2 written correspondence from the public for that item.
Okay.
Just to, so those items were circulated to council to form part of the public record. So I just wanted to bring that to the attention that we received correspondence from Irene Schmidt-Adney, and we also received correspondence from Trina King.
Right, thank
So I'll
you.
note that in the minutes.
That was in the amendment, right? Thank you. Next one we have up is from Paul Ferreira in regards to paving at Hilltop. Now, I already had some discussions, as Councilor Rowland did, as CEO McNeely did, in regards to the raised crosswalks at the stop signs. Councilor Ossner.
Sorry, Mary Fox. Did we have to vote on the Steve Tiffin on 7.6?
Oh, that we do. I apologize. We do. We have to receive it for information when we've given direction to the clerk. So do you
Yes,
want to
so-
go ahead with that, please?
Yes, sorry. So that's moved by Councillor Rowland and seconded by Councillor Gillespie that the correspondence received from Steve Tiffin regarding speeding on Northumberland Street be received. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rowland,
Yes.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
and Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you. So again, we did some explanation to Paul Ferrero in regards to the raised humps and how this has been on the books for some time. So are there any other comments or anything on this one? Seeing none, can I have the motion, please?
Certainly. So that's moved by Councillor Ossner and seconded by Councillor McCreary that the correspondence received from Paul Faria regarding Hilltop Drive paving be received. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rolleman,
Yes.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you. Now, the next three correspondence are all in regards to the gypsy moth caterpillars. Now, I've been told that it's too late in the season. Oh, CEO McNeely, go ahead.
Madam Mayor, if I could speak to all three because they're all the same issue.
Right.
So I've spoken to my counterparts across the region of Waterloo, as well as in the county of Brant and the city of Brantford. None of those municipalities have aerial spraying programs. I am aware that the Grand River Conservation Authority does at some limited conservation properties, including 2 properties within North Dumfries. I've done a little bit of research, and it is too late in the season to have any measurable effect on the gypsy moth. Also, council should be aware there is an extensive program of surveillance to identify actually where you have infestations and they meet certain thresholds, and then you have to apply for licenses and permits. And there's a public consultation component built into that to actually have the zone where you would deploy aerial spray application. What has been suggested, and this is something that's being pursued very aggressively in the City of London, as an example, they've got a public education campaign. Basically, the gypsy moth favors oak and maple trees as a preferred tree species. And what they have suggested is residents, as well as the municipality, can do certain things to the tree that are low cost and readily available. So things like putting duct tape and or burlap on the trunk of the tree is a means of capturing the moth as it goes up and down the tree trunk. And especially in these hot days, the moths in their present form are actually climbing down the tree toward the ground to find cooler conditions. And if you have the burlap and or the duct tape, they're going to get stuck on it. Very, very soon, they're going to go to a cocooning stage on the tree trunks where they'll be laying their eggs. And once again, if we were to scrape the eggs at those locations and then dispose of them in soap and water, it'll kill the eggs, and it significantly then reduces the next year's infestation because they won't hatch the larvae and eggs. So what I was going to suggest to council is sort of a multifaceted approach, and Ms. Sage has a resolution crafted along this line. One would be to establish the appropriate website page to talk about what could be deployed by residents to assist in the present period in terms of reducing the infestation as a go forward with respect to the gypsy moth, and have that available, promote it through our social media and other advertising platforms. Then the second component would be for staff to return in the fall to give council an understanding of what is required, both in terms of surveillance, density, as well as projected costs and process if you were to think of an aerial program for 2021 or beyond. And that way council can make some informed decisions and decide whether or not, based on that fullness of information, you wish to take it to a further level. But step one, immediate, would be creating that education outreach component. And I'd be largely relying on other municipal jurisdictions like the City of London, who have a very robust page.
Thank you, CEO McNeely. Actually, I was going to direct staff to do a report on this for later on in the year. Due to it is too late. So that's perfect. Do we know if we have any in our parks?
Madam Mayor, across air and portions of the rural environment, you can start to see some of the oak and or maples that are under stress. There are certain pockets that seem to be more heavily impacted right now than other areas. I have my notes from Brant, and they're starting to see a decline in the gypsy moth population from what they've seen in previous years. So things are cyclical in nature, and what they're finding in some of the moth larvae Brant is they've contracted a fungus, and that will start to kill out the population of gypsy moths as well. So they've started to witness that in some of their larvae, and that fungus, along with whatever we can do in terms of capturing the moth and or the scraping of the larvae eggs, would be used to assist in eradicating or limiting the impact for future years.
Ms. Gillespie, Councillor Gillespie.
Yes, thank you. I've heard that there's quite an infestation in Branchton as well. So in the along the Branchton Trust lands. So yes, they're looking for some solutions as well.
So maybe you can pass on to them the burlap. I think that may be a good thing for now.
Yes, yes.
Their infestation.
I think they realize that it's too late to do anything now. And they were talking about this BTK spray that one fellow did use, but he did it earlier. That seems to be.
Now, the next three resolutions, oh, sorry, Ms. Gillespie. The next three resolutions are exactly the same. So I'm going to have the clerk read one and state the name of the individual in the first one, and then just state the name of the individual for the other two, and we'll vote on them, if that's all right, because the resolutions are the same. So if you read 7.8 and then say 7.9 and have us vote on it in 7.10 or 7 and 8.9 and 7.10, because I believe all three are the same.
Yes. So did you want me to read each one individually?
No, just read the first complete resolution, then the other two for 7.9 or 8, you're going to say correspondence we've received from Cheryl Hanley in regards to the caterpillar gypsy moth, and 7.10, you're going to see correspondence received from Rosanna.
Okay.
You're
certainly. Okay,
Okay,
yep.
thank you.
Certainly. So moved by Councillor McCreary and seconded by Councillor Ossner that the correspondence received from Rosanna Garashi regarding gypsy moth caterpillars be received, and that staff prepare an information package on gypsy moth programs to assist in the mitigation of this insect to be posted on the township website, and that staff return in the fall of 2020 with best practices for the manageability on means measures to control gypsy moths. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you.
So 7.9, so moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Rollman, that the correspondence received from Lisa Fanjoy regarding gypsy moth caterpillars be received. Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
And that the same as the previous motion.
Okay,
So,
and as,
yes,
as presented in the previous resolution.
right, yes,
Okay, yes, so Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
yes,
Councillor Rollman,
Yes.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
and Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried. And item 7.10 is moved by Councillor Rollman and seconded by Councillor Gillespie that the correspondence received from Cheryl Hanley regarding caterpillars be received, and then as presented in the previous two resolutions. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
yes,
Councillor Rollman,
Yes.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
and Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
thank you. Okay, and next we have 7.11. Do you have any comments on this, CEO McNeely, in regards to your memorandum on broadband?
No, I don't. It's just, excuse me, it's just a follow-up to the broad discussion that council had at the meeting of May. And I've tried to capture both elements of both lack of service and the high cost of service. There is a differentiation. We've also identified in downtown areas and or in business parks, a higher bandwidth capacity is required. And that puts us at variance to what SWIFT as well as the federal government have indicated as an acceptable level of service. And so what's been promoted for downtowns and or the business parks is 100 microbits per second. Businesses typically move larger chunks of data and digital type files, and they require higher volume and capacity to either move in terms of sending out and or receive to be successful. And at the current 50/10 threshold that is held by the federal government through a CRTC opinion decision, doesn't consistently work for business park areas and or downtowns. So that one added dimension was included in the draft resolution for council's consideration.
Thank you, CEO McNeely. I have to tell you a story. So MPP Mike Harris and MPP Belinda Caraholios was having an announcement in regards to internet, and I was invited with CEO McNeely for the announcement, and it was done through Zoom, and CBC was on and everything else, and so I came on and my internet failed, and so I had to rush to the township, and I missed most of the announcement, but I was allowed to speak, and I said, this is exactly the problem we have out in the rural areas, where all of a sudden you can be without any internet at all. And it was interesting. I said, this is an essential service. It is an essential service. It no longer is just a toy. It is an essential service today. And it was interesting because MPP Belinda Caraholios said, with COVID-19, more people are going to be staying home. And more people will be coming to the rural areas if there is high-speed internet. Catch-22 on that one, maybe, but so it was a good point. Now, Ms. Sage, when you get to this, you don't have to read all the first page. If you would start at, now therefore be it resolved on the top of page, the second page. Is there any questions or comments before we start? Seeing none, go ahead, Ms. Sage.
Certainly. So moved by Councillor Osner and seconded by Councillor McCreary. So the resolution as presented in the memo from the Chief Administrative Officer as presented. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of North Dumfries enacts as follows. That the Government of Canada and the Province of Ontario accelerate and increase funding programs that are designed to serve rural and small urban communities to ensure affordable access to or the development of high-speed capacity network infrastructure. And that the Government of Canada and the Province of Ontario design area-specific funding programs for business parks in downtown areas to employment districts in rural and small urban communities to support, at a minimum, 100 Mbps high-speed, high-capacity bandwidth internet connectivity. And that this resolution be forwarded to the Waterloo Economic Development Corporation, the Waterloo Regional Tourism Marketing Corporation, the Southwest Integrated Fiber Technology Board of Directors, the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce, the Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce, the Region of Waterloo, and the area municipalities within Waterloo Region seeking their endorsement. And that this resolution be forwarded to all members of Parliament and members of Provincial Parliament in Waterloo Region. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rolleman?
Yes.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you. Now on to 7.12. The report. Any comments on the Monteith Brown Planning Consultants bid? Seeing none, can you read the resolution, please?
Yes, so it's moved by Councillor McCreary and seconded by Councillor Osner that Council receive REC report number 09-2020 and that council approve the award of ND-RFP-10-2020 to the consulting firm of Monteith Brown Planning Consultants Limited in the bid amount of $67,750 plus HST to complete the preparation of the indoor ice use and needs analysis business case assessment study, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute any necessary documents to facilitate the award of ND-RFP-10-2020 with Monteith Brown Planning Consultant Limited on behalf of the township. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman,
Yes.
Councillor Osner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you. And next we have 7.13, Investment Canada Infrastructure Program. Any comments or questions on this? The motion, please, clerk.
Certainly. So moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Rollman, that based on information received regarding the grant applications for the Investment in Canada Infrastructure Program - Community Culture, for which the township made application in November 2019, that the funding allocations be amended as follows. A, the installation of the 3 tennis courts with overhead lighting with estimated costs of $378,705 if approved, and eligible for 40% federal funding and 33.33% of province of Ontario funding, that the balance be funded by the township, with $88,508 from development charges and $88,508 from the Parkland Dedication Reserve Fund. B, the park washroom upgrades at the 3 parks, Victoria, Cowan, and Schmidt Parks, to make AODA compliant with estimated costs of $270,400 if approved, and eligible for 40% federal funding and 33.33% province of Ontario funding, that the balance be funded by the township with $72,116 from the Parkland Dedication Reserve Fund. And C, the ball diamond field and lighting upgrades at Victoria and Schmidt Parks with estimated costs of $663,728 if approved, and eligible for 40% federal funding and 33.33% province of Ontario funding, that the balance be funded by the township with $101,001 from the Parkland Dedication Reserve Fund. And that if the projects are approved, any contract to enter into the agreement with the federal and provincial government for the funding under the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program be brought back to council for approval. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman,
Yes.
Councillor Osner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you. And we have the next one is the purchase and installation of a prefabricated storage building for Air Minor softball. Any comments, questions? Seeing none, the motion, please.
Certainly. So moved by Councillor Rollman and seconded by Councillor Gillespie that report Rec-10-2020 be received, and that council approve the purchase and installation of a prefabricated storage building for the use by the Air Minor Softball Association at Victoria Park for an upset cost of $18,000 be funded from the Parkland Dedication Reserve Fund, and that Air Minor Softball provide an insurance certificate to indicate valid insurance coverage for the contents and liability stored in the storage building. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman,
Yes.
Councillor Osner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
and Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you. And next is report number 15. So if you'd like to read that, any comments or questions in regards to this? This is the multi-level deck structure on 84 to 86 Stanley Street. Okay, would you please read the resolution?
Certainly. So moved by Councillor Osner and seconded by Councillor McCreary that building report number 3-2020 be received, and that council approve the agreement between the Township of North Dumfries and 8424152 Canada Incorporated to recognize the existing multi-level deck structure located at 84 to 86 Stanley Street and its associated encroachment onto municipal lands, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the encroachment agreement between the township and 8424152 Canada Incorporated, subject to any minor revisions as required by the chief administrative officer or township legal counsel. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman,
Yes.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
and Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you. And next we have CEO report number 15/2020 to be received, which is item number 16. I'm trying to figure out how to shorten it for you because I'm sure you've had a lot to read. But I don't see a way of shortening this one.
You can't
So
say
take a
as
breath,
presented,
and then
Ken.
you can start, Miss Sage.
Certainly. So moved by Councillor McCreary and seconded by Councillor Ossner that CAO report 15-2020 be received and that council approve the economic recovery program phase 3 expanded and enhanced patio guidelines for 2020 as appended to CAO report number 15-2020 to support the recovery of the township's local economy throughout the phased provincial reopening related to the COVID-19 pandemic. And that council delegate authority to implement and administer the Economic Recovery Program Phase 3 Expanded and Enhanced Patio Program for 2020 initiative to the Chief Administrative Officer or his designate. And that during the coronavirus pandemic and related recovery, that council deem a license to temporarily occupy and use township lands issue in accordance with the Economic Recovery Program Phase 3 Expanded and Enhanced Patio Program for 2020 to be a public service of the township and interpret by extension that any use authorized by such a license shall be exempt from the regulations of zoning bylaw 689-83 pursuant to subsection 6.9 of said bylaw. And that during the coronavirus pandemic and related recovery, that council deem a license to temporarily occupy and use regional lands issued in accordance with the Economic Recovery Program Phase 3 Expanded and Enhanced Patio Programs for 2020 to be a public service of the region and interpret by extension that any use authorized by such a license shall be exempt from regulations of zoning bylaw 689-83 pursuant to subsection 6.9 of said bylaw. And that during the coronavirus pandemic and related recovery, that council delegate to the Chief Administrative Officer or his designate the authority to issue letters of non-objection to the Alcohol Gaming Commission of Ontario, the AGCO, where appropriate for enhanced or expanded patios that are consistent with the expanded and enhanced patio program for 2020. And that any building permit fee, fire department inspection fee, temporary sign fee and or license fee as established by the municipality under bylaw number 3118-19, the user's fees and charges associated with the expanded and enhanced patio program for 2020 initiative be waived. And that bylaw number 3171-20 being a bylaw to establish a business license for expanded and enhanced patios for restaurants, bars, and similar establishments for calendar year 2020 be enacted. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
You were muted, Councillor Ossner. You're muted.
Oh, there we go. Yes.
Thank you. Councillor McCreary
Yes.
and Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you. And now we have item 9, which is correspondence. Is there anything there that people want to pull out to touch base on? What
Yeah.
about 9? Oh, I'm sorry. Who had their hand up? Councillor Gillespie?
Yeah, 9.1.6, this tax review on farms. I could not find that Mapleton thing. And 9.1.9, time of use. I have a question on that for the electricity. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, I actually, I was gonna get a hold of Hydro and ask them about that one. But does anyone have any CEO McNeely, can you answer any of the questions in regards to these? So we'll start at 9.1.6.
So Madam Mayor, Councillor Gillespie, you may recall this when we met with MPP Carolius back in January of 2020. We made a presentation. It was one of a series of items that were discussed, but we made a specific presentation to MPP Carolius asking for a review of how agricultural lands are assessed because we're finding it uncompetitive. So certain portions of Ontario, their land values are much less, and yet their commodity price and their inputs are the same as a higher assessed area like North Dumfries, and it's making it difficult for the farm community to compete because it's not a level playing field. So that was the general premise of the presentation to MPP Carolius, and coming out of that meeting, she did send a letter to the Minister of Finance as a follow-up. I have not seen anything back from the minister's office coming out of our meeting with MPP Carolius. So if you wish, I can follow up further with the minister's office or MPP Carolius to see if there's a reply coming. Alternatively, if you wish, we could seek a delegation with the Minister of Finance about the farm assessment and how it's calculated as part of the AMO delegation.
Councillor Gillespie, do you have any idea what you want to do right now? Or do we want to adopt this same motion? 9.1.6.
Yeah, I said I couldn't find.
It's on
The-
page 131.
Yeah, I saw that, but I was trying to find the report that they were speaking of, and I couldn't see that. So
I don't think they included the report.
Did not.
I tried to find it on their website and I couldn't find it there either. So I definitely would like to follow up on it, and we could support this as a review of farm taxes.
So CEO McNeely, can you please follow up with MPP Carolius and also script a potential motion that we would be passing at our council in regards to a similar one as the Pushlands one?
All right, so if council's agreeable, then I bring a report to our next, a memo with a sample resolution at our next meeting, which I believe is July the 13th.
The other one was 9.1.9, which is the, what confused me about this, time of use, price of electricity. And we understand all the time of use, but there's this opt-in thing, opt-out thing. Do you know any more about that, CEO McNeely? I was going to ask Energy Plus about it because it doesn't say what you're really opting in or out of.
No, I'm not familiar with this opt-in, opt-out scenario. Certainly, we have not received any notification directly from Energy Plus in regards to this.
Okay, if you look at the second bullet that said, as well, beginning November 1st, 2020, TOU, time of use pricing, will resume, and customers who pay time of pricing will have the option to choose to opt in to tiered pricing. What is tiered pricing? Is that the same thing as time of use? So, Councillor Gillespie.
Well, I was very confused because I thought we were on a flat rate for all this COVID thing. But if you look at your bill, they're still charging us different time rates, which I found very confusing. Like my hydro bill did not go down.
Can you email me an email on that and I'll send it to Energy Plus tomorrow and find out why?
Sure.
Okay, and I will also try and find out about this tiered pricing and opt-in thing. Now, the other one I was going to just touch base on was The financial assistance for Canadian municipalities. Do we want to jump on board with that, ladies and gentlemen? What they're saying is because of the hardship of COVID-19, they're asking the federal government to provide funding to deal with some of the hardships in regards to finances over COVID-19. Ms. Stedall.
Just a note on that, this is through the Federation of Canadian Municipalities that support of their resolution, but it is geared towards the larger and urban municipalities. So, but it makes some sense to support the region because the taxpayers here are going to end up paying a lot. Well, we're going to pay a portion of our taxes to the region, and they are going to find it difficult, especially with a couple of their costs like
Right.
transport.
And I think I saw the chart, and the chart gave North Dumfries 1.1 million if it passed.
Yeah.
Wellesley got 1.2. We don't want to talk about how many millions the region of them get. But do we want to support the motion? There is no harm in supporting it. Councillors, what do you think? Anybody opposed to supporting it? Then could we also, that was 9.1.2. So can we also support that, similar to what Woolwich did? Okay, so we've given direction to staff in regards to, and myself, in regards to 3 of those issues. So you have you've got that all, Ms. Sage, the 3 items?
Yes, yeah, if so, is council proceeding to support 9.1.2 and 9.1.8?
Was it 1.8?
Sorry, was it just 9.1.2?
Oh yeah, 9.8 is the same thing, isn't it, as the Woolwich one? They're the same thing, the financial impact.
Yeah, they're both to do with the
COVID-19. They are the
financial.
same, so that's correct. We can say both of them, 9.1 and 9.8, but the same thing. Yes, the
So
financial impact.
if there's a mover and a seconder for that motion to support the resolutions.
Can I have a mover and seconder, please? Just put your hands up. I've got Ostner and Rollerman, please.
Okay. So in terms of supporting the 2 resolutions, 9.1.2 and 9.1.8 as presented, Mayor Foxton, how do you vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rollerman,
Yes.
Councillor Ostner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
and Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, so that motion to support those 2 resolutions is carried.
Thank you. 9.1.6, we were going to look into that more, the farm property tax rate. Are we supporting that? Councillor, Ms. Stedall.
I believe what you said earlier about getting more information. I think that's a good idea, is to find out exactly what it is that it's not as specific as it should be.
Okay, so we'll get more information on that. Is that okay, Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
All right, and that'll come back as a next report. And the other one was 9.1.9. We're going to look into that for clarification. You can just make a note that the mayor will look into that for clarification. So then resolution 9.1, we are going to pass all with the exceptions of 9.1.2 and 9.1.8 and 9.1.9. Correct, clerk?
Yeah, if council would like to receive the remaining resolutions, yes.
Okay,
So 9.1.2.
so call the vote.
Yeah. 9.1.9. Certainly. So that's moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Rollerman. So that is that council received the following items. So council's receiving 9.1.1, 9.1.3, 9.1.4, 9.1.5, 9.1.6, 9.1.7, and 9.1.10 as for information. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman,
Yes.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
and Councillor Gillespie, sorry.
Yes.
Yes, that motion is carried.
Thank you. And now we have 9.3.1.
Certainly. So that is moved by Councillor Rollman and seconded by Councillor Gillespie that council receive for the purposes of information the following items. The Region of Waterloo minutes dated May 26, 2020 and June 1st, 2020. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman,
Yes.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
and Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Next, we have item number 12. Any comments or questions in regards to item number 12, ladies and gentlemen? Seeing none, clerk, could you please?
Yes. So that's moved by Councillor Ossner and seconded by Councillor McCreary that the following bylaws be taken as read a first and second time. And that is items. That's
Just read the
bylaw
bylaw numbers.
Okay. Bylaw number 3160-20, bylaw 3166-20, bylaw number 3167-20, and bylaw 3168-20, bylaw number 3171-20, and bylaw number 3172-20.
I do not have 7.2 on the resolution.
So that was the one council just added this evening
Right.
to amend
okay,
the
so-
traffic and parking to add
So
the.
you'll amend it and, yeah, okay,
So I'll add that in. Yes, that was added tonight.
okay,
All right. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote on that?
yes.
Councillor Rollman,
What happened to section 11 of the agenda?
Section 11, mayor's reports. Oh, are we going to come back to that after we'll do the mayor's reports right now, mayor's and councilors report. My apologies, Councillor Rollman. So, report, oh, I had it as down further on my list here in the agendas. All right. Councillor Ossner, you wanted to talk about English Street sidewalk.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask on update again, just to refresh my memory on, we were supposed to do the sidewalk on English Street in 2020. And I've had quite a few recently, I've had quite a few questions about the sidewalk and how dangerous English Street is. So when are we going to do that?
CO McNeely.
Well, Madam Mayor, we have acquired some additional land in 2018 to facilitate a portion of the sidewalk along Inglis. So that's now in our title. In 2019, we did a preliminary design for the sidewalk between Northumberland and Cahoon, where it would tie in then to the existing sidewalk that continues further east along Inglis. So we have a preliminary design now done. It was prepared to support actually a 2020 construction, but if council recalls, during budget deliberations, two issues arose. One was the reconstruction of Northumberland Street and the potential concern of traffic deflecting down Inglis and the commingling of us closing a portion of a lane to do the construction in recognition of diverted traffic from Northumberland. And the other was we reallocated some funds to pay for some overages coming out of 2019 in the sidewalk account. And so it was the availability of capital dollars now to deliver that program in 2020. The estimated cost to do that section of sidewalk is between $115,000 and $120,000. Part of the extra cost, there will be a few portions where a retaining wall is required to accommodate changing grades adjacent to some buildings that frame a portion of the proposed alignment of the new sidewalk. So it'll be presented again as part of the 21 capital budget for council's consideration.
Councillor Rollman.
I thought Councillor Gillespie made a motion to allow the sidewalks to be funded from the construction of sidewalks to be funded from the tax levy. And I thought that's what we were going to do. So I didn't think that part of the budget was a problem. I thought Councillor Gillespie had solved that problem for us. So I'm surprised that we can't do that construction this summer.
So what we transferred was to deal with the operating components related to the budget for the Four Seasons maintenance of the sidewalk system. This is a capital undertaking, not an operating.
And if I may, I also thought that it was the construction that we were going to do several pieces of construction this summer, but because of the larger constructions, we deferred our road constructions and sidewalk. Any other questions?
Okay.
Okay, the next one is
Sorry,
Councilor
Mayor Foxton.
Councilor Osner.
So we will deliberate again in the next budget discussions to get that sidewalk done in 2021.
So council's part of the 21 capital budget consideration. We'll have that in front of them, and council will have to make a decision at that point in time.
Yeah.
Okay, we're good? Okay, Councilor McCreary, Roseville Road reconstruction project. Now, I did talk to the region at Regional Council when it came up. It came up not the last meeting, but the meeting before. I asked for the three-way stop. I talked about the justification for it. I talked about at the open house how staff were for it and as the most safe route to go, and that we want them to address this. I have not heard back since that meeting. I can email again tomorrow and see if there's a follow-up, but I actually brought it up at Regional Council.
Okay, that's good. What I wanted to say was that at the last council meeting in May, I had reported that the region's final report was going to be coming out in June, but it's now delayed, and they have said it's going to be available for the public to review on August the 7th, and it's going to go to the Planning and Works Committee on August the 11th. And I wanted to mention that because there might be some members of the public that are going to be interested in the outcome of that report.
Thank you. Councilor Gillespie, regarding property bylaw provisions and requesting an update on the flashing speed sign.
Yeah, the bylaw concern came from a resident in Branston. He was saying that if you walk around the town of Branston, there's a few derelict cars and, you know, just general junk, I guess, on people's property. We talked to the bylaw about it, but the bylaw said we would need a specific complaint and an address, not just a general thing. So I was just wondering if, you know, in the next tax bill, perhaps we can send out a general letter saying, please, you know, something to please keep your place clean, because it's not only Branston that this is a problem. I have a fellow on Highway 24 here that has quite a collection of goodies too. So that was my concern. The other was in the dog and kennel bylaw thing. There was a thing about, you know, having to poop and scoop. Who's going to check? You know, we can't have the bylaw guy coming and running around doing that, because there was a complaint about that in Branston as well. So that was both my complaints on that. And then I just wondered about the flashing light, if we'd heard anything about the flashing lights.
CEO McNeely.
So Madam Mayor, if I could, to assist Councillor Gillespie, we have our weekly e-blast, which acts like a community newsletter. Certainly we can put something in there about the principles of clean yards and property standards, as well as some strategic social media posts to just once again provide a friendly reminder to the community. We'll call it Pride in Your Neighborhood kind of an approach. Mm-hmm. So we can certainly do that in an immediate context to reinforce that messaging. As it relates specifically to the flashing sign request, so yes, correspondence was sent to the region's transportation department affecting Branston, Clyde, and Roseville, consistent with council's previous resolution, asking for the installation of the flashing speed signs at the approaches to those respective communities on the regional roads. Staff went a little bit further and said if failing this, then we welcome your ideas, being their ideas, related to other methods of horizontal, vertical, or similar approaches to modulate and reduce speed through these three communities. So that file has been assigned to a individual at the Region's Transportation section, and I would anticipate we'll start hearing some follow-ups to that council resolution, and then the added dimension that staff put in front of them.
She's been asking for this for a long time though, hasn't she, CEO McNeely?
I'm sorry, Councillor
Councillor
Gillespie
Gillespie's been asking for this flashing sign for a long time, right?
came out in the May meeting of council. So that resolution was adopted in May, and the correspondence went to the region at that point in time.
So I may follow up at the region for you, Councillor Gillespie, to find out where this is sitting.
Certainly, there's been historic work done in the community of Clyde, and there actually was some pavement marking that was deployed 2 or 3 years ago on the approaches into Clyde.
Right, I remember that. Trish did that. Trish,
So the region's transportation section
Yeah.
took that on, and they had done a similar approach in a couple of other settlement areas elsewhere in rural Waterloo region. But that's the only one that I'm aware of in the historic past, was in the community of Clyde. And as I said, it was the east and west approaches, but it was more of a pavement marking exercise. But the community of Branston request, which linked in then Clyde and Roseville, was a resolution brought forward in May of this year.
okay, so the markings, are they gone in Clyde? Are they still
Yeah.
visible or they need repair? Okay, so
They had those delineators or whatever you call them. They're not there anymore. They're gone.
okay, so I'll talk to Trish and get that, see what she says about that. And it was the flashing sign for the other three, all three areas, Branston, Roseville, Clyde. Is that correct, CEO McNeely?
Correct.
Okay, I'll follow up, hopefully I'll follow up on those tomorrow. Okay, thank you. Next is the emergency measures. Councilors wanted to discuss the emergency measures. So, Councilor Roman, Councilor Roman, go ahead.
So my question basically was, I understand the province has their emergency level and the region has theirs because they are both involved in delivering public health. But the township, we don't really have that role anymore. And I think the sort of the initial panic over this crisis has sort of ended. I would like to see us end our state of emergency and resume normal operations. The region can still have theirs, the province still have theirs, but I think it's time that we ended ours, and maybe then we go back to having council meetings in person again, and we start reintroducing sort of a normal kind of life again, in a careful way, of course. But I think we should consider when are we going to come out of this state of emergency?
Councilor Roman, the EOC, Emergency Operations Center, what we do is take the regulations from the province and find out how we're going to make them happen in North Dumfries. So that's basically what the EOC is, and how we're going to communicate the provincial message and things like that. It doesn't make any of the rules. It just talks about how we're going to enforce them.
But why can't council do that? We're elected to do that exact same thing. So you don't
Well,
need.
that's an interesting thing, and we did discuss that. And the thing is, we bring together all the different agencies, so it's quite extensive. And but CEO McNeely, would you like to comment?
Township EOC or the regional EOC?
The region is called the COVID-19 Pandemic Committee, and the EOC is the township. Emergency Operations Center. So CEO McNeely?
So Madam Mayor, to Councillor Roloman and your question about resuming business, council in person, we would still be governed by the province's threshold of no more than 10 persons in terms of public gatherings. It would be difficult for us to hold a council meeting and not exceed or approach that 10-person threshold, as well as the 2-meter separation distance. So the township's emergency plan, regardless of whether it's enacted or not, would not affect how council convenes its current business meetings as council or committees of council. Council can have and has always had the ability of having a blended between people in person and council members virtually, as well as members of the public virtually. And there are some municipalities that are doing that, especially some councillors that have internet challenges, but we're still governed by that 10-person threshold. And until the province amends their order and provides further relaxation in that regard, we're still going to be governed by that component. As it relates to the EOC and whether or not there's merits in terms of township continuing to have an enactment of the declaration, the regional CEMCs, which are the Community Emergency Management Coordinators, so Robert Shantz is our representative, were tasked by the CAOs from across the region to come up with some criterion as to what would make sense as criterion or trigger points for the relaxation or the removal of an emergency declaration, whether it be at the region and or at the area municipal level. That was discussed at our EOC meeting on 2 separate occasions, most recently last week. And it was reviewed at the Pandemic Control Group last week in terms of their thoughts and input on those criterion. At the Township EOC, there was no position taken. It was more of a review of the document and were there areas where edits or further items should be considered. None was put forward. At the region's Pandemic Control Group, basically the principles were embraced as guiding criterion to inform the heads of councils, whether it be at the region and or at the area municipalities, in terms of when and if the emergency declaration should be rescinded. Right now, we're in the recovery phase of COVID. And certainly there are some recovery elements that are still being administered through the program. And Best Waterloo Region is largely championing that and providing input both at the area municipal level and through the control group. The patio document that was presented to council tonight is an example of one of those initiatives. And that was done through Best Waterloo Region and the Chambers of Commerce and the BIAs in some other area municipalities. And that expertise was brought forward and then put through the lens of the transportation section. So we've shifted from a response to a recovery mode. And we're seeing some positive trends in Waterloo Region, including a reduction of occupancies within both hospitals as well as ICU. And that was certainly a key objective when the province first initiated their emergency declaration. It was to try and remove some of the stress on our healthcare system. So the work to date has proven to be successful, but definitely we're moving into a totally different phase as we go forward. All of the groups, regional and local, have reduced the frequency of our meetings because of generally where we are in the spectrum of the.
And if I can interject for a second, CEO McNeely, the frequency was we were meeting twice a week. Now we're down to once a week, because we have to react to every single announcement. So council would have had to have met twice a week previously, or at least once a week to deal with the information coming forward. Go ahead, CEO McNeely. So again, and the meeting would be quite large. It is really large at the region, I have to tell you. I believe it's about 37 people at the region, CEO McNeely, when we do our pandemic committee, because it invites fire, police, public health, all hospitals, long-term care. It's a wide range, and the 7 mayors and the chair of the region. CEO McNeely, did you have any comment?
No, I mean, other than you know, that criterion has now been published. And the question now is, excuse me, where are we in terms of achieving some of those suggested criterion as the basis for removing or rescinding the emergency management plan? That scoring has not occurred in the context of North Dumfries. And I would suggest that would be the next step if council wishes to move in that regard. And then a report would come available, and or the mayor on her own can rescind the declaration.
The CEO, Councillor Rollman, so the CAOs met and have requested North Dumfries not rescind, but I told them we were talking tonight. Councillor Rollman.
I guess that's my question though. I mean, what the CEO said, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like, you know, the regional CAOs and the COVID crisis group at the region level are running the whole show. At some point in time, we as a township have to take back responsibility and run our own government. We can't, in an email you said to me at one point, this could last another year. I'm not comfortable with another year of an EOC in North Dumfries. I think we have to start taking control of this again. The region and the regional CEOs, God bless them, they're doing a great job. But at some point in time, they have to loosen up the reins and give council back its authority. And that's what I'm wondering. So when is this going to happen? If it's not going to happen tonight, is it going to happen in September? Is it going to be a year from now? Because I didn't run for council to sit here and be told what to do by bureaucrats. I'm here to be a politician, and I'm here to be responsible to the people. At what point in time are we going to get our jobs back? That's my question.
So this debate happened exactly at regional council, and regional council agreed that the pandemic committee has to continue at regional level. But as I stated in my email to you, I said it could go to October. We're already phasing out. Okay, we're at 30% staff now, Ms. Steto, or is it 50%? We're hitting 50% in mid-June, late June? 50% we're at? And we're still working out issues and resolving issues with that. So we will be moving in these directions. Interesting, July 15th, regional council will be testing a split council where some will be physically in the building at council chambers and the others will be on Zoom. And we're going to see how that's going to work. The problem is that you can't have two people on Zoom in a room because there's feedback. So I'm not sure how it all going to work at that level. So we're just feeling things out at this time to see how things will work. For instance, but you're still running the municipality. That's evident in tonight's agendas package and the heaviness of it. We're still running the whole thing. The EOC is implementing the provincial rules, and we're communicating with the other municipalities so that we are working things in sync, so that we don't open our splash pad and somebody else doesn't have theirs open, and things like that. So we're still coordinating everything based upon the regulations by the province. But this council is still very much in charge of North Dumfries based upon tonight's paperwork alone. Any other comments? Councilor Rowland, are you frozen? No, you moved, okay.
Just reading something.
I beg your pardon?
I'm just reading a document right now.
Oh, okay. Any other comments? Are we done with this issue for now? When can we readdress it at our next meeting as well and keep it as an agenda item, please? CEO McNeely?
So, Madam Mayor, as I mentioned when I last closed out, I mean, you as mayor have the ability to rescind the declaration at any point in time, and or council. So does council wish a report on July 13th scored against the criterion that was reviewed locally as well as at the regional pandemic control group?
Have they not seen the criterion? We've not produced that for our councillors as the same criterion that we talked about at the pandemic committee?
It was summarized in the documentation last week. But no, they haven't seen the exact language.
Okay, so we should provide that because that says when you should step out of the EOC, and we haven't met that criteria yet. But look at the documentations and we'll discuss again on the 13th, if that's okay with everyone. See, Councilor Roman.
I guess I'm just wondering, like, I'm looking at Blandford Blenheim and East Zora, and they're going back to live meetings. And, you know, we only have, I'm looking at this Zoom right now, there's only 8 of us in the meeting.
There's 2 that you don't see, but that's okay.
That's still 10. So, you know, like, I just wonder, like, when are we going to start bringing things back, you know, to having a council in person? I think the meetings are more effective when we're in person. Like, there has to be a way that, I mean, other centers are doing it. So, you know, are we just not considering it? We could live stream to the public so they can have public input, but there must be ways that we should be looking at.
CEO McNeely.
So, Madam Mayor, those municipalities you just referenced, they are actually using blended environment, some in person, some remote, so that they do not exceed that 10-person threshold. Okay. So if council wishes to lock the door, we would spread everybody out in McNeil Hall. You'd still be on your computer terminals, but you'd
Yeah,
be in
it's
the
still
same,
done through Zoom.
because that's our means, for lack of a better term, to spread whatever's occurring in the council setting outside the 4 walls of this building. So it's an in-person meeting, but it's not really a true in-person meeting. It's still being done through a Zoom platform on your laptop. But we have had the ability to do that to date. You know, up until 3 weeks ago, the threshold was 5 persons. And now, of course, as of the 12th of June, it's now increased to 10. I don't know what a future order will look like in the coming weeks. But, you know, the reality is we cannot control how many people might show up at a council meeting. And that's the problem with opening the doors, because we don't know what and how many people would show up. Whereas this way we can assure the control of information, the participation of the public by the registering and being able to appear and or ask questions virtually, so that the business of council can be done in an open manner. No, it's not ideal. The software itself has limitations, but we're leveraging it to the best of our abilities, and we've made some subtle changes since we first got into this, so that the public has some more direct contact with members of council in this virtual setting.
So I tend to agree with you in a way, Councilor Roman, that I would like to see us do a blended type meeting starting. I don't know how. You can't have 2 Zoom computers in the same room. There's so much feedback, it's terrible. And yet they have to be, so we still have to figure that out. The region's working on it. I'd like to see how they do it. They're doing it July 15th. I'm one of the test models, so I'm going into council chambers. So we'll keep you apprised. I would hope that we're back to meetings by September. That's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping a lot of things will happen by September. Maybe I'm being optimistic, but I'm hoping a lot will happen by September. COVID-19, even if there was a shot today to protect you, I don't know if I'd take it till I saw how it worked on other people. You know, I have that head. I'm not confident that sometimes when we rush things, we don't get the best. But I think this should definitely be on the July 13th discussion again, and on every council discussion on where we're at and how to proceed. And Councilor Roman, if you can bring, and other councilors, bring suggestions on what you want to see us phasing in. And please read those EOC minutes and meetings, because it's got a lot of the documents in the packages showing you the checkpoints of what we have to come out of the EOC. And we don't pass any of those checkpoints yet. But I think we're on the cusp. We are on the cusp of change. And how we do change will affect how well we do going forward. And but we're working out the kinks. We're at 50% staff right now, did you say, Ms. Stedall? Okay, so what is the next threshold we're looking at for staff return?
At this point in time, I don't think we're going to be taking it up above the 50%. Staff are working at 100%. There's not that, it's just whether or not they're actually in the building or not. And a lot of staff are finding that they're much more productive when they are working remotely on different days because they don't have the commute. But we're finding that this is the same thing that's going on. So I've been speaking with the other IT in the region, and all of the municipalities are finding the same thing, is that they're only going to be able to do a split. We have certain places that are in the even here in the large community center where people are still too close when we bring all of the staff back. So we've got protocol where they've got gloves and masks and they're signing in and they're doing a self-assessment before they come on site, but that doesn't mean that they're not available. So all staff are available and they are taking phone calls, and they are as well, if they have to have meetings with the public, they're available. We have some rooms that are sectioned off, but I don't expect that we're going to be going up above the 50% level, at least until taking a look at it again in September.
Yeah, I think the new normal for a lot of business, I've talked to a lot of businesses and organizations. A lot of them are never going back to 100%. Some people are choosing to stay at home and work from home. Others are choosing wanting to go back because they're getting stir crazy at home. So it's a mixed bag, and some people are doing mix. CEO McNeely, you had your hand up.
So Madam Mayor, how we're staffing and rotating staff through has nothing to do with the enactment of the emergency declaration. It's our conformance with the guidance notes published by the province of Ontario for an office setting. Okay.
Right.
And, you know, the reality is we have thresholds now in our washrooms. We have thresholds about how many people can be in the lunchroom. And it comes down to just the spatial separation where you have points of gathering. And, you know, the reality is portions of where the administrative staff currently reside was never set up in the context of a municipal office. So we have pinch points, but we have our counterparts who are in larger purpose-built offices, and they're still working at the 30 to 50% thresholds for the same reasons that we're going to have. And it's just proximity of people and the spatial separation that's required under the provincial guidance notes. And so under the Occupational Health and Safety Act is where we're guided in terms of how to deal with the COVID environment and those restrictions in the workplace. We have other protocols related to recreation and public works. Once again, that largely flows from the provincial guidance notes and has nothing really to do with whether or not we have an emergency declaration. This is just how business has to respond in this new COVID world. And we are leveraging technology to the best of our abilities so that staff that aren't in the building on a given day, they're working remote and they're connected both to their phone, their email accounts, as well as the digital files.
Ms. Stedall, you had your hand up.
Sorry, it was just exactly what CEO McNeely was saying. I guess it's a lot of people thought for a long time that the staff weren't here, that there was there was nobody at the NDCC, so therefore there was nothing going on. There's a lot going on, and I think that that's not just felt here with the township, but it's found in most municipalities. Staff have been working all through the pandemic. There has been no glitch. We were able to make sure that everybody was able to work remotely, just as counselors have been able to get work remotely with the tablets that we provided. So I just wanted to reiterate is that it's a separate issue, but I think it's important that the public is also aware is that we are here and that we will answer any questions that they've got.
Any other questions or comments, councillors? So I recommend that this remain on an agenda item for each meeting going forward so we can reevaluate. And also that we bring in those checkpoints and add it to the agenda next meeting, CEO McNeely. Those checkpoints for the stages you're supposed to be at before you can end an EOC. All right, moving on now, we can go to the bylaws. So first and second reading of the bylaws.
Yes, so that's moved by Councillor Ossner and seconded by Councillor McCreary. That the following bylaws be taken as read a first and second time. So that's bylaw 3160-20, bylaw number 3166-20, bylaw number 3167-20, bylaw number 3168-20, and bylaw number 3171-20. And then council also added this evening bylaw number 3172-20. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman,
Yes.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
And the third reading of the bylaws, and if you could just say bylaw 3160-20, regulate dogs and licensed dogs. And so just to let people know what we're talking about.
Yep, no, certainly. So moved by Councillor McCreary and seconded by Councillor Ossner that the following bylaws be taken as read a third time and finally passed. Bylaw number 3160-20 being a bylaw to regulate dogs and licensed dog kennels and to repeal bylaw number 1286-90, 1294-91, and 2255-07. Bylaw number 3166-20 being a bylaw to amend the fees and charges bylaw to include a rental fee at the Air Community Center for the North Dumfries Sports Camp. Bylaw number 3167-20 being a bylaw to amend the traffic and parking bylaw to facilitate one-way traffic southbound on Rose Street from the northern driveway at Victoria Park through to Water Street to expire on October 13th, 2020. Bylaw number 3168-20 being a bylaw to appoint a municipal law enforcement officer and property standards officer, George Cook, for the Township of North Dumfries. Bylaw number 3171-20 being a bylaw to establish a business license for a permit to permit a patio or pop-up patio for a restaurant, bar, or similar commercial establishment. And then the bylaw added by council this evening, bylaw number 3172-20, being a bylaw to amend the traffic and parking bylaw to install a temporary stop sign through to October of 2020 for a three-way stop sign at the intersection of Walter Street and Piper Street. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman,
Yes.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
and Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you. And next, number 13, going into closed session.
Certainly, yes. So moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Rollman that council move into a closed meeting session at 9:01 p.m. under the Municipal Act, Section 239, subsection 2, subsection C, to discuss 1, report number CAO-12-2020, 1171 Greenfield Road, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, Municipal Act, Section 239, subsection 2, subsection C. 2, report CAO 13-2020, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, Municipal Act Section 239, subsection 2, subsection C. And 3, report CAO-14-2020, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, and that's Municipal Act Section 239, subsection 2 and subsection C. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman?
Yeah.
Sorry, Councillor Rollman?